Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES for 10% off any purchase over $10. If you use that promo code between now and January 28th, you will automatically be entered in a drawing to win a Ravnica Allegiance booster box. Check out the description below for details. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to Day 3 of official Ravnica Allegiance previews. We have a lot of cards to look at again today. Much like the last couple days, we will quickly recap everything that was revealed over the last 24 hours or so, and then give you some quick analysis as well. Quickly before we get started though, just a fast reminder, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to support the channel, one of which is our Patreon page. You're also going to find links to products on Amazon down below. And finally, Flipside Gaming still offering a promo code for our viewers. Hopefully you can save a little cash while you support us. But as always, thank you not only to the folks that look at those links, but to each and every one of you. Y'all make the channel what it is. But let's get into today's cards. Angelic Exaltation. This is going to cost a white and 3. It's an enchantment uncommon. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So kind of like Exalted. See what they did there? Now, this is actually a really sweet card. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, so I'm going to say this first. Don't know if it's going to make it there in Standard because it does require a certain board presence. If you have a lot of little creatures and then you have like a flying creature or a lifelink creature or a trample creature or something like that, this could be super sweet for you, right? Maybe even game ending at times. However, if you don't have all that going for you, then it's not that great of a pickup. Maybe if you're in a situation where you just had a board sweep or something like that. And also it does cost 4. By the time you get to 4 right now in Standard, people are playing Rekindling Phoenixes and such. This is a little slow. Granted, it doesn't mean you took the turn off necessarily, because you could still attack and get the bonus maybe. But if you're not in a situation where you're able to attack, you're behind or something like that, it's not going to feel good if you draw this card. So I don't think it actually gets there, unfortunately. But I do like this card in other formats. Limited for sure. Sealed or Draft, I'll be happy to play this a lot of times, depending on what my deck build is. Now, if I don't have a lot of creatures, I'm in a more controlling build or something, maybe Azorius Colors, it might not be that great. But if I'm in Orzhov, for example, with the Afterlife mechanic and such, this could be pretty good. So know your deck a little bit before you just throw it in there, but I think for the most part, you'll be happy to run this many times in limited games. Now, where I really like this card, though, is going to be Commander. You could play this with, like, Rafik of the Many, for example, or just a number of other commanders that are out there. This is just a solid card in perhaps even a Selesnya token deck or something like that. You'll have all these extra creatures, and then you attack in with your commander, get some massive commander damage. It could be really good there. Homunculus. Okay, so a few days back, Mark Rosewater had stated that 2019 was going to be the best year for Magic, that he was really excited about it. I think it might be just because they let him name some of these creatures and some of these creature types, as a matter of fact. So anyway, this card, it's a blue and 4. Homunculus, common, 2/5 with hexproof. Is it a good card? Well, not something you're going to play in Standard, but in Limited it might be okay. It depends on your build. It won't always make your cut. If you have some good auras in your deck, hexproof creatures are always going to be good, so it might work out for you there. Or if you're in maybe the Azorius build, which could be slower, more controlling perhaps, then slowing down the game and gumming up the board isn't necessarily a bad thing with a 2/5 for 5 with hexproof. Now, if you're in a more aggressive build, perhaps you're going to be in Simic colors or something like that, then this might not be as good in some of those builds, so just keep that in mind. The real attraction to this card is truly the art and the flavor text and the name and such. Next we have Quench. It's a blue and 1 instant common, counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. So basically you got a watered down mana leak here. Is a watered down mana leak all that bad? Well, it might be a little disappointing that it's just not mana leak, but it's not the worst thing in the world. I think it's actually still good enough to see some Standard play. Many times I might still prefer to have Sinister Sabotage in my deck, even though it costs more. But there are some matchups where I might actually appreciate this. And for that reason, I do think it will, at the very least, just come out of sideboard sometimes in Standard. So, is it a good Limited card? Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I would play this some of the time in Limited, but not all of the time. It just depends on what I'm trying to do with my deck. Maybe I'm leaning towards Azorius Colors, I'm trying to control the board state. A copy, or maybe even 2 copies of this won't be the worst thing in the world. But it does get bad as the game goes on sometimes. If you're in a long game with a lot of plays and you're getting deep into a board stall, this is not going to be a good draw for you, unfortunately. But I think that's okay. It's a risky take when you play a card like this. Same thing could happen with Mana Leak, actually. So it will be fine there, but not for all decks. Verity Circle. A blue and 2 enchantment rare. Whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes tapped, if it isn't being declared as an attacker, you may draw a card. Pay a blue and 4. Tap target creature without flying. Let's talk limited first here. I think this is actually a very good limited card. It is a rare, you won't see it all the time, but it is a monocolor card, and I actually do like what this can do. Simply, in a limited game, yes, it does cost 3 to get it on the battlefield, slows you down a little bit. But from that point forward, especially if the game does go on long, whenever an opponent taps a creature other than attacking, you get to draw a card, so it might make them think twice about using some of their abilities. And then, if you use that mana sink, you can tap down their stuff on the ground, get in there for some attacks maybe, protect yourself, and draw cards while you're doing it. That feels like it is really, really solid, especially in a board stall, right? Now, in Standard, I don't see it in a lot of main decks, but maybe out of sideboards, if the opponent is playing Convoke or Mana Dorks, this could actually be pretty decent against them. It's going to make them make some tough decisions, if nothing else, because they're going to have to think, do they continue with the game plan and let you draw cards, or do they slow themselves down? And if they let you draw too many cards, they're going to get buried in card advantage and lose that way. So it really could paint someone in a corner sometimes. Now, if they're too far ahead, it might be a little too late at that point. They can just attack and just keep going. And then this card's not going to do a whole lot if it's at the top of your deck. But many other times, it could actually come in handy, I would say. So as long as there's decks that are using abilities like Convoke or Mana Dorks, which I assume there will be in the next meta, yeah, I do think this will show up at least out of sideboards there. I also think this might be an interesting commander card. You can tap people's creatures down, draw some cards while you're doing it, encourage them to attack each other, maybe if you're playing Pillow Fort, something like that. Could be fun. Bankrupt in Blood. Black and 1 sorcery uncommon. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice 2 creatures, draw 3 cards. Drawing 3 cards for 2 mana actually sounds really good, but think of this. You are sacrificing 2 creatures, and you're using this card, so you're basically just replacing those 3 items with 3 cards. So you're almost kind of breaking even in a way. Now granted, you could get rid of creatures that aren't helping you anymore, maybe some tokens that you don't need, something like that. Obviously, there is an aristocrat-style strategy going on within the set, so if you're all in on that and limited, this card will probably be very good for you. This could be good also in Afterlife, because even though you're sacrificing creatures, you might not actually lose value if you get the tokens in the air, so that's kind of cool too, makes this card a lot better. And if an Afterlife or Aristocrats deck does make it into Standard, this could see play there actually. Blade Juggler. I think this is a good limited card. Black and 4, Human Rogue, common 3/2, Spectacle, and black and 2. When this enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to you and you draw a card. So it replaces itself. That's pretty cool actually. Now, 5 casting cost, 3/2 that replaces itself, does a point of damage to me. Is that bad? It's not the best card in the world, but I don't think it's actually that bad in Sealed or Draft. I would still play it. If I can play it for the Spectacle cost, though, the card is much better, obviously. So this will be better in aggro builds, but you know what? It's a pretty good card generally. Normally in Limited, would I play a 3/2 for 3 with no abilities? No, but the fact that I get board presence here and continue to work through my deck feels really good, and even if I have to pay 5 sometimes, that's a risk I'm willing to take. Burning Tree Vandal, red and 2, Human Rogue. This is another common 2/1 with Riot. Whenever this attacks, you may discard a card if you do draw a card. I actually think this is a really good common because it gives you a lot of flexibility here. 3 mana, you either get a 3/2 or you get a 2/1 haste creature, depending on what's going on with the board state. And then whenever it attacks, you have the option to Rummage, which is very good. And even if I just play this and then go ahead and attack and Rummage 1 time and it dies in combat, I'm starting to feel like I'm getting my money's worth here, which is pretty good. This does exactly what a red card wants to do. If you start flooding into too many lands and you're running out of gas, then you can pitch those lands and hopefully find some more gas on top of your deck. That is actually good enough to maybe, just maybe, see a little bit of Standard play in some kind of aggressive build. Now, in Limited, this card is pretty awesome for a common. Maybe you can pick it up in the middle of a pack and draft and you're going to be super happy with it. If you're playing some kind of Rakdos aggro deck or something like that, this will be a key card for you at the common spot. Electro Dominance. This one's a rare. 2 red and X, it's an instant, and it will deal X damage to any target. You may cast a card with converted mana cost X or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Alright, that's actually kind of sweet. I really like that this is an instant, so you can hold your mana back, but remember, whatever card you're trying to cast for free does still have to follow the rules of when it can be cast. But even so, free spells are always cool. Now, you could look at this one of 2 ways. Either I'm doing a direct damage spell to something or somebody, and then I'm getting to play a free spell. That's really cool. Or I'm playing my spell, paying 2 extra red, and then I get some additional damage stapled onto my spell. That way doesn't sound as impressive as the first way, but it's the same thing. So anyway, Remember the expertise cards not too long ago? I think it's very similar to those. Some of those saw standard play. Some didn't see that much standard play. I don't think any of them saw as much play as some people anticipated. Usually when you think free spells, you think it's always just going to be an amazing situation. But I do think for the most part, those cards were balanced. I think this one is balanced too. I do think it will see a little standard play. But this does not exile a creature if it destroys it, like say a Lava Coil, which is very important right now in the format. Cards like Lava Coil, Vraska's Contempt, they're good because they exile. Now this does have the added bonus of perhaps going to the face to finish off an opponent. That's actually kind of cool. So I do think you might see this in lieu of perhaps Banefire in some decks, maybe. But Banefire is good against the control matchups, so if the control matchups are still strong like they were last season, then I don't know if people will want to take Banefire out of their sideboard to replace it with this. But it may see a little sideboard play here or there. I do think it's possible anyway in Standard. In Limited, this card's awesome. Also, this is a way to get around a particularly color-intensive mana cost in your deck, or even play a card that your deck wouldn't normally be able to cast, which is kind of interesting. So at the end of the day, is this a good card? Yeah, I actually think it's pretty good. In Draft, this thing is first pickable. I mean, it's a bomb rare, and you'll be happy to take it. It's also monocolor, which is nice because it doesn't commit you to anything too early. Smelt Ward Ignis. This costs a red and 1. It's a creature elemental uncommon 2/1. Pay a red and 2 and sack it. Gain control of target creature with power 3 or less until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. So, threat and effect, staple to a creature, doesn't seem bad for Draft or Sealed, as a matter of fact, especially at uncommon. This feels good. The downside of threat and effects many times in Limited is sometimes you're just behind and you draw the card and it's not going to do much for you. You're not in a position where you can attack even if you do take one of your opponent's creatures, and then you kind of have a dead draw and you just continue to fall behind. Well, this is a little different because if I'm in that situation and I draw this, well, at least it's board presence. A 2/1 for 2 is not the worst thing in the world. And at some point, I can activate that ability. Now, also, when this is sitting on the battlefield, my opponent knows it's there. So it does change the way they play their game a little bit, and it might make them hold back, and that's not a bad thing either. Now remember, it can only take a smaller creature, power 3 or less, so it does have that drawback to it, but it's still better than nothing, considering you're still getting the board presence out of this as well. Now remember, threat and effects are usually better if you have some sack outlets, and there are definitely sack outlets within this set, so whenever you can make use of that combo, go for it. This might not always make your cut, but I do think it's a pretty solid card for Draft or Sealed. Remember, too, in a pinch, you could use this ability on a creature you control anytime you could play a sorcery. So it isn't really a combat trick, but you could give a creature you already control with power 3 or less haste and untap it if necessary. Biogenic Upgrade. Now here's a extremely solid card for Draft or Sealed. This one is 2 green and 4. It's a sorcery, uncommon. Distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures, then double the number of +1/+1 counters on each of those creatures. This is the type of card that can actually put away a game of Draft or Sealed if you play it at the right time. And yeah, if you're behind and you don't have board state, it's not going to feel good. It's not the perfect card. But if you need to slam the door on a game, maybe you're in a race and you need to pull ahead, this will do it for you. It's a sorcery, but still, on your turn, kind of out of nowhere, you can throw a bunch of +1/+1 counters on your things and just attack in. Hopefully you got some stuff with trample or evasion, and you're going to be having a really good time for sure. This is maybe a first pickable uncommon in a number of packs when you open this in Draft, as a matter of fact. It could be that good. Now, I think it's a little too unstable for Standard. Again, it does require a certain board state for it to do anything, and if you don't have that board state going for you, then you have a 6 casting cost card that's going to do not a whole lot. Doesn't catch you up when you're behind, and I can forgive that when it comes to Draft or Sealed. Not as much so in Standard, especially how competitive the format is right now. Rampage of the Clans. This is a green and 3. It's an instant rare. Destroy all artifacts and enchantments. For each permanent destroyed this way, its controller creates a 3/3 green centaur creature token. I like that it's an instant. You could use this as a combat trick. If you have some enchantments or some artifacts your opponent attacks in, you could surprise them with some 3/3s just out of nowhere. That's kind of cool. Now, if your opponent has some problematic artifacts and enchantments, you don't have a better answer, this can turn them into 3/3 creatures. Hopefully you have an answer for those creatures, but it is an option sometimes. With that being said, does this see Standard play? Maybe. So treasure tokens are in this set. Will there be a treasure token deck, maybe running Revel in Riches, and then this is another win condition? That's a long shot, but if it were to happen, then yeah, this could see Standard play. So there are situations, if not now, maybe in the future, that this could show up in Standard. You know there's going to be some crazy brews coming when this set drops. Now, in Limited, it's kind of interesting. If you have some good ways to make treasures, and we haven't seen enough of the set yet to know how viable that would be, then this could be a very good card, maybe even to close out some games. Other than that, I feel like it's a sideboard card if my opponent has some problematic artifacts or enchantments that I don't have a better answer for. I do think this could result in some fun in Commander too, maybe in a Pillow Fort deck where you know it's going to be hard for opponents to attack you with creatures, but turning their other stuff into creatures could be entertaining. Titanic Brawl. Here's a no fooling around common. Green and 1, it's an instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast if it targets a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. Yep, that's right. And an instant speed, 2 casting cost, maybe 1 casting cost fight spell. This is premium removal in green. This is a phenomenal card. Not only in Limited, yes, in Draft this could be a first pickable common in a lot of packs, I have no doubt. It's a monocolor, high power removal spell. That's awesome. But even outside of the Limited strategies, this will see standard play. We already had Prey Upon in standard, which is good, but I think the fact that this is an instant, even if it does cost 1 more sometimes, means that we will see this in the format more than we saw Prey Upon. It does have some flaws. I mean, not being able to exile could be a problem in this format. We know that. Also, you have to have some board presence for this to work, unfortunately, and that might not always be the case, so this isn't necessarily as good as some removal spells that exist. But when you're talking about green, this is a very push common. Frilled Mystic. I think Mark Rosewater's hand was in this one too. This is a 2 green, 2 blue, so it continues the cycle. Elf, Lizard, Wizard. Yep, that's right. Uncommon 3/2 with flash, and when this enters the battlefield, you may counter target spell. So the card itself is actually pretty decent, because even though, yes, it is color intensive with 2 green and 2 blue, it is a Mystic Snake-like ability, and that's actually really good. I think this does see standard play. Bant control decks might get better in standard, even above and beyond like the Bant Nexus decks that we have seen, just because some of the pieces that have been coming out over the course of the last week or so, and this is another one of them. In Limited, this is very good. Maybe not always a first pick uncommon because of the color requirements, but again, you're getting board presence, a 3/2 creature with flash, and it can counter a spell. Yes, you do have to make sure you can cast it. 2 green and 2 blue can be a little demanding sometimes, especially if you're going into 3 colors, but if you're confident that your deck will be able to pull it off, then you'll want to run this. Grasping Thrall. Black, white, and 3, Thrall, common 3/3 with flying. When this enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to each opponent, and you gain 2 life. So in multiplayer, it's kind of nice that it does impact each opponent, although I don't see myself running this in Commander or anything like that, nor do I see myself running this in Standard, but it's not a bad Limited card. I'd be happy to play it most of the time. A 3/3 for 5 in Drafter Sealed is not bad at all, and when it enters the battlefield, you get a 4-point life swing. Yeah, I can't ask for too much more than that out of my common. In Draft, maybe I pick this up in the middle or later portion of a pack, and it could still be a playable for me. This one's a Portuguese language preview, translated loosely, Rhythm of the Wilds, green, red, and 1 enchantment. Creature spells you control can't be countered. Non-token creatures you control have Riot. Okay, so there's a lot happening here for 3 mana. Once you get this thing on the battlefield, and yes, you do have to slow yourself down to do it, but from this point forward, every creature you play has Riot. Either comes in with a +1/+1 counter or haste. And remember, if the creature already has Riot, this is giving it a second Riot, so you'll get 2 triggers, which means you can either give it 2 +1/+1 counters, you can give it a +1/+1 counter and haste, or you can give it haste twice if you wanted to for some reason, not sure why. But anyway, yeah, that's actually kind of sweet when you think about it. So does this card see standard play? I think it does, but I do think it will be out of sideboards, and here's why. If I'm in a Gruul Stompy deck, I want to keep the pressure on. Taking turn 3 off to play this doesn't feel like something I really want to do if I can avoid it. I'd rather just play another creature with haste, actually, as opposed to casting this. However, if I'm up against a control build, then I would definitely consider bringing it in. So I do think because of that, it will see standard play. Again, as long as a Gruul deck can get there. And I do think with the tools we're getting, that's possible. Now in Limited, I think this card gets a lot better. All my creatures coming in with Riot, I don't have to really be in Gruul colors either. I could splash red or green to play this. Regardless of what I'm doing, this is pretty awesome. Now, creature spells you control can't be countered. That might not be as amazing and Limited all the time. Sometimes it will be applicable though. But it doesn't have to be because this enchantment really makes all your future creature plays that much better. One last thing I'll say about this card, don't know if it will get there in Modern, but this does play really well with persist creatures and things like Blasting Station if you want to try to make a combo go off. Don't know how realistic that is, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Modern brewers looking at it. Certai Goblin. It's a red, a green, Goblin Berserker, uncommon with Riot 2/2. Very simple card here, but a solid one. Think of it this way. It's kind of like Watchwolf, but you have the option sometimes if you want to make it a 2/2 with haste instead. Yeah, Watchwolf was actually a very solid card in its day. It saw standard play. Now in today's environment, I don't know if Watchwolf would see standard play, so I don't know if this will either. But again, if there's a Gruul deck out there that wants a 2-drop that's going to be pretty aggressive with Riot, maybe it just kind of squeaks by. We'll have to see. Besides that, though, in Limited, you're going to be really happy to play this. It's a 2/2 with upside, even though it is 2 different colors, and you know how I feel about those. Alright, with that being said, those are the cards for today. Now, tomorrow we're going to do our Market Watch video. If there's any amazing cards that come out over the course of the weekend, I will do a special video, but if it's just kind of small things, then I'll just roll those into Monday's video. We'll just see how it goes. But until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page, as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.